Hi, this is Richard CHYCKI, and you're listening to Sonic Perspectives.
Hello, everyone. It's Rodrigo here, bringing you another interview for Sonic Perspectives. We have the honor today to talk to Richard CHYCKI, engineer and producer of bands like Rush, Dream Theater, Aerosmith, and many more. Richard, great to have you with us.
Oh, thanks a lot for having me. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm just nursing a little bit of a cold, but we carry on. Yeah. Let me start by asking you. You were in a band called Winter Rose with James LeBrie, and I think Sebastian Bach also sang with you guys at one point. How was your transition from guitar player and composer into engineering?
Well, Winter Rose is the exact reason I got into engineering because there was, there were no schools. All of the education that's available now to everybody didn't exist back then,
Mm,
and I learned how to record because I thought that's kind of what you did when you're in a band. I really didn't know. I had no feedback from anybody. I just knew the records that I really liked to listen to, and I knew which direction I wanted to go sonically.
mhm.
So I would be. I had been recording myself since I was like 14 years old. So, and I mean those recordings were awful, but they taught me from a very young age how to get a project, something that was in my head, and
Mhm.
get it so that it was something tangible, right?
I see.
So so really the crossing over, the biggest issue is that feeling of being an artist and disconnecting. So when
Mm,
I'm listening, if I were to listen to myself play guitar, I wouldn't say, I wouldn't have it in my head going, "Oh, you're rushing, Rich. What are you doing that for?" I would
mm.
be listening back, going, "The guitar player's rushing," and
Uh-huh.
I was a guitar player, right? So, or if I was singing, if I would do any vocal, if I'd be doing a background vocal, I listen to it, I'm going, vocals flat, even though it's me, and I apply that outwardly. I apply that to James LeBrie and all the other artists that I work with. That
Yeah,
it's a strict evaluation of what it is, and it's not a judgment. It's an evaluation of the performance, and I think that that's been something that's helped when I'm on the production side of the glass.
hmm. But well, I mean, it's one thing to be able to do it, but the other thing is to break through as a profession and getting the contacts and getting the deals. That side of the business. How did you break through?
Well, I was pretty excited with Winter Rose to promote the band, to try and get a record deal. That's
Hmm.
what Labrie and me, that's what we were trying to do. And I was sending out a lot of recordings to a lot of record companies,
Right.
and I was in their face. I would go right to, there was A&M Records was, it was a block away from where me and Labrie, we lived in a building, in an apartment building, one floor. He was one floor below me, so we
Uh-huh.
used to just hightail it a block over to A&M Records and get in their face. And anyway, so I would start to get calls of about the recordings and from the record companies, and they'd say, "Listen, we've got this band."
Mm,
And some of them were, we want to do some pre-production demos. You want to do this and you want to do that, and then all of a sudden, those those demos were like, well, we really like this. We're going to use it on the record, and then suddenly it's on radio, and then suddenly it's charting.
hmm.
And really, it's no different than what it is now. It's networking and staying in touch with everybody, much like it's what we all do, what you do, with
Yeah.
all of your any of this stuff. You stay, you stay on people, and you try to maintain a relationship. And if they want to work with you, it's an enjoyable experience for them. And that's one of the things that I um, I'm really, I have a lot of gratitude for is when I look at, like Alex Lifeson or John Petrucci, when they say, hey, what's it like working with me? And they say what a great time they had and how much fun
Hmm.
they had. And, what the atmosphere was like in the studio. I think that that's something that's valuable because it translates into the performance.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, if you have a tough record, there are records that are tough to make and you can hear it, and you have records that are fun to make and you can also hear that.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
for sure.
yeah.
And what became of Winter Rose after James joined Dream Theater? Did you guys try to continue in any capacity, or?
Well, when James had told me about he told me about Dream Theater, that he had this opportunity to audition, and I put together, I put together all the demos for him and went through all of our photos and put
Uh-huh.
together this little promo pack for Dream Theater, and we stayed in touch as friends, and um, I mean, Winter Rose was one of those things that I didn't want to be. Uh, in a constant state of trying to flog this band. And I was already so busy in the studio with
Hmm.
different bands that it's just one of those things that, it went by the wayside. We ended up releasing the album that we did. And those are all the demos that we were using to try and get a record deal. So really all
Uh-huh.
anybody that hears that is they're hearing demos. So uh, any of the assessment done to it, it's like, guys, this isn't even it's not even a real record. These are demos. So some of the songs are
Yeah, yeah.
like they're 8-track analog recordings.
Uh-huh.
So there's not a lot to work with there, right?
Yeah.
So we uh, James had called me when I think he was in Italy, and a guy came up and he said, "Hey man, can you sign my record?" And it was a Winter Rose record. The
Wow.
record didn't exist. He says, "Can you sign this?" And Labrie's looking at this thing, going, "What?" And the guy goes, "Yeah, man, it's great. Your record's gone gold here."
Uh,
And so he gets on the phone. He's like, "Dude, we have a record out and it's gone gold." So we just talked about it. We said, "Well, we should just release the stuff." Rather than it just being out there, we'll release it, and at least we have some control over at least what it is, because there are people that are listening to copies of copies of copies of
yeah.
cassettes and all
Yeah.
sorts of really strange stuff. So it's just I'd rather, at least for what it is, have it out there for the fans.
Yeah, yeah. And not many people are aware, but Sebastian Bach was the original singer of Winter Rose,
Well,
right?
it didn't exist. Sebastian and I, we met on we were tanning on Cherry Beach out in the East End of Toronto.
Right.
And
I go there all the time.
right there you go.
Yeah.
So we were tanning, and uh, he came over and said, "Hey man, got a cigarette?" And so we just started talking, and I told him I was a guitar player, and he was a singer, and I said, "Listen, I wanted to record. I'm looking for somebody to record because as much as I can sing, I prefer somebody that's a more accomplished singer than what I could ever do."
Uh-huh.
And so we were actually more of it's like I was putting together the music, and he would come in and sing. And Winter Rose didn't exist until after Labrie and I started to work together, because James and I, we recorded uh, a couple of demos. Recorded a couple of demos, and then we said, let's do a band. So for Sebastian Bach, we had done a lot of songwriting, and anytime he got like a little bite from a band, off he went,
Hmm.
and went and worked with them. They came back. We did a little bit more recording, and then, finally once he joined
Skid Row.
Skid Row, and then we did a little bit of recording at Electric Ladyland while he was in Skid Row, and I really haven't seen him since.
Right. Okay. And after James left Winter Rose,
Uh-huh.
you there was a gap in there between the collaboration of the two of you, because you only worked together in the dramatic turn of events, and you did a few of his solo albums as well, right?
Yeah, the first time I worked with him since he joined Dream Theater, I did Elements of Persuasion with him.
Hmm.
I did Elements of Persuasion, and And then after that, I think it was I just did some technical, just some repair work because there was there were technical issues with ticks and crackles and pops and
Mm.
in the recording of the live recording. And I ended up, he called me saying, "Listen, can you help fix it?" Because it's not like now where everybody has Pro Tools now. It was a rare thing then. And so that's where we sort of struck up the uh, the relationship to start doing work again. We've always been friends, anytime. Um, we've known each other for so long that, he goes off, he'll do a world tour, we'll do an email once in a while. And then when we get on the phone, it's just like we never stop talking. That kind of thing
Nice.
where you have
Yeah.
those friends, right? And that's a relationship we have. Sometime he'll be busy doing something and, or I'm busy and all of a sudden it's like, "Hey man," you know, and we
Yeah.
just pick up, which is just like, it's just like when we were in a band together. So it's
Well,
awesome.
yeah. Well, I interviewed him and it lasted like 45 minutes to an hour. He wouldn't stop talking. But anyway, he's that kind of guy. Very generous in his interviews. But yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that the fans have sort of complained about a little bit in the last 4 or 5 albums of Dream Theater is the drum sound.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I'm sure you're aware of how critical they are about this, but particularly the snare sound, right? Can you comment on that? I mean, what's the difficulty that have there, or because there's been a change in approach from album to album, right?
You know what? I think with all artists, there's a change. Um, there's a change from album to album for all artists.
Hmm.
Except for, well, even I was going to say except for ECDC, but you know what? I take that back because they did go through quite a bit of changes. In the post.
Yeah, and the when Brian joined, yeah,
Yeah, and then after that, they had a little bit more of an '80s vibe, and so
yeah,
they kind of shifted around a bit. As far as the complaints go, it's uh, first I think it's one of those things that during the production of the album, that from a team point of view, that there was an issue as far as the uh, as far as the drum kit goes. Just so you look at, I did some remixes for Images and Words, and there are no real kick and snare on the record. All I had is ticks, and we had to. When I was doing
yeah,
it for, I can't remember what uh, video game it was. I can't remember if it was Guitar Hero.
mm,
Anyways, but when you get that sort of thing, that's something that is a very samply record from a drum
yeah,
point of view. But it's also one of those things that seem to resonate with the fans.
hmm,
And while there's that issue of saying, "Well, I don't like the drum sound, I don't like this, I don't like that," a lot of people saying, "You know what? There's a lot of great songs and performances on the record."
hmm,
So, at the time, um, if I were to say, "Well, I want to," I didn't produce the record. If I would produce the record, I would go one direction or another. So it's one of those things that it is a collaborative effort from the producer to the engineer and working backwards. So I think the issue is that the album didn't resonate with the fans the way that would have hoped it would have resonated with fans.
hmm,
And I think really that's where it has to start. That people will, if they feel it, if they feel the album, then you have those magic moments. And I think something like Images and Words is a great example of that.
uh-huh.
You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You touched on an important point, I think, because when it comes to establishing roles in a recording session, I know some producers are producer slash engineer, others are producer, right? And just simply looking at the end result. Have you had experiences with both these types of work ethics
That's a
in the
great
past?
question. That's a great question. I don't know if you're aware of a band that I finished up uh, at the beginning of this year called Pyramid Theorem.
Oh yeah, I know these guys. Yeah.
Great. So
Yeah.
if you listen to the Pyramid Theorem's latest record, um, that would be a project that I did production for,
Hmm.
and I had done project, an all instrumental progressive artist named Into the Great Divide, instrumental with Mike Mangini playing. And both of those records are very progressive and sound very different than a Dream Theater record, right?
Yeah.
And for me to be involved, let's say looking at a band like Rush, to be involved with Rush, they would have, let's say for the records I worked on, Nick Raskulinecz was producing,
Yeah.
right? And so it's not my job to evaluate performances based on, like, to basically do what the producer's doing. My job is to capture the audio, iron out any technical problems, right? Iron out any technical problems, and try and keep the vibe nice and light in the studio as much as I can.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm always changing hats, right? So if I'm doing something where I'm going to mix a record, I'm going to do some preparation for myself as I'm recording. If I am going to be producing, well, I also I'm going to be making calls for the that have to do with the songs and to pull the performances out of the artist, right?
Yeah.
So my hats are always changing. So for my work with Dream Theater, I was very aware and respectful of John's position as producer. So it's like, just stay clear of the performances, except for vocals, because I would typically do those with James alone.
Okay. So you did those here in Canada, right?
Yes. Yeah.
For the most part.
We tried for the dramatic turn of events. We tried to do some vocal work in New Jersey. I flew down. I flew down to Long Island to try and track vocals, and James just wasn't feeling it there. So we flew back the next day. We went down, we flew back, and then we cut all the vocals at my studio.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of perception, at least from the fan side, that albums that you record with everybody in the studio, they sound more organic, more real, more authentic. Do you have anything to add to this discussion, for example?
Which record? Let me ask you. So, which records would you be talking about?
Not one in your portfolio, but for example, when they talk about the albums in the 70s where the whole band flew together and traveled together to a studio
Yes.
or to a remote location, like
Mhm.
when Rush did those albums in the studio, for example, or even before that, those American bands like Grand Funk Railroad, for example.
Mhm.
Um, but nowadays, with people being remote and having technology available in favor of them, you can do pretty much anything, right?
We it's not necessarily a production call
Mm,
as far as recording that way.
mm,
There are It's also the artists themselves to go and say to do entire takes, like Xanadu. Xanadu is the first take of an 11-ish minute song. It's the
mm,
first take that the band did. And if it wasn't the first take, then let's say La Villa Strangiato.
yeah.
La Villa Strangiato is not a continuous take,
Hmm.
right? Because it is a long, really grueling song to do.
Yeah.
And so you can imagine if you're doing that and you're in the last 30 seconds and you make a gaffe, you make a mistake, somebody makes a mistake. It's like, okay,
No.
guys, let's go back to the top and do that again.
Yeah.
Right. And it's one of those things that the recording methods on top of it, I'm happy to record if a band wants to record, if they want to record all together, I'm fine with going down that road and recording that way. I typically, if you've seen any of the Dream Theater videos for the prior two records that I worked on, you
Mm.
would see that there are stations set up for everybody in the
Yeah.
studio. So there's John's guitar is always set up, bass rig is always set up, drums are always set up. Uh, we did have a vocal booth set up for James if he wanted to sing there, and there was an acoustic guitar station, and of course Jordan's keyboards were always set up in the studio, so
Uh-huh.
that at any given moment we could record anything we want. So if we could come in and, at the end of the night, say John would say, "Okay, guys, you know what? We're going to kick in, and I think I'm going to do a rhythm guitar for X song tomorrow." And we would walk in and just say, couple ideas he wants to lay down first. So we would just do it 90
Hmm.
degrees and go off and do that. It was also possible that if the band had an idea, that we'd be able to say, great, let's all sit down. We just arm all the tracks and we can record an entire performance of everybody if we wanted to in one take.
Uh-huh.
Right. So, and that's entirely, that was something that's entirely possible. And we did that for, and I really can't remember what the Rush track was, Malignant Narcissism. You know,
Oh, yeah.
Malignant Narcissism was a live off the floor. Nick
Hmm.
came in, said, dude, we got to record this, go. So it's just arm everything
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and rock. And that track is actually a live off the floor, boom, one shot.
Yeah. And they wrote in the studio too, as far as I know. They
Absolutely.
wrote it there, like in the spur of the moment, and say, "Let's push record."
Yes, yes, absolutely. It
Yeah.
was actually Ged for Malignant Narcissism. Ged had this riff he was playing on a bass that Fender had sent him. He was
Mm.
just trying it out, and Nick was like, "Hey, what is that?" And that was it. It just went together, and they just hammered it out instantly. And you know what? I don't think that there's any one method of recording, to say, well, this method's organic, so it's better than that method. You
Hmm.
know, I mean, Beatles overdubbed. Beatles overdub records. They did
Yeah.
pretty well. Other bands they do stuff live off the floor, and they do well. I think if we just go back to the original thing that I said, you know what? If this resonates with listeners and the emotion translates to a fan,
Hmm.
job done. Job
Yeah.
done. No, there's no rules one way or another.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And I know you were involved with Rush when R30 came out. That was the
Yeah.
first time you associated with them. What kind of stories can you share about working with them for so many years?
I got I wanted to work with Rush for quite a long time. I was a fan for a long time, and the timing just wasn't there for us to connect up.
Hmm.
And I got a call from a friend of mine who worked in the Rush office, and he said there was a charity event for the tsunami that happened in 2004,
Mm.
and Rush was going to be contributing. They were going to be contributing a few performances to the charity event. So a buddy of mine called and he says, "Listen, the studio's got a pop engineer booked for the studio, and yeah, we don't think that's the right thing. Do you want to do it?" So I'm sure. Immediately, yeah, I did it.
Yeah.
So they did. Excuse me. They did Closer to the Heart,
Hmm.
and ended up being an 18-hour day of working with getting the song done. But we had a great time. Al and me, we were laughing our faces off the whole time,
Uh-huh.
and we just felt that there was great chemistry. And Al and I stayed in touch. And a few months later, he called and just said, we've tracked this R30 thing, and we don't have anybody to mix it. So do you want to come down and see if it's something you're interested in? That's what I love. They were so humble. It's like, do you want to see if
Yeah.
you're interested in working with us?
Yeah.
Let me think. You know,
Right, right. And how would you compare the roles of Gaddy, Alex, and you in the studio? I mean, who's the most obsessed with sound?
most obsessed with sound. Well, you know what? They're all obsessed with sound in one way or another.
Mm.
So, I mean, certainly Neil has a way of looking at his kit and the way uh, the way he assesses his drum sound, and
Hmm.
no drum samples. He's very make my kit sound good and leave it alone, right? Which is exactly, what's done. And uh, Ged is one of those things where he's sonically, he's looking at his bass, he's looking at his vocal, he's looking at keyboards. So he's got a pretty wide spectrum. And Al is he's he's super layering, and he puts stuff together that all of a sudden it just snaps. These bits all snap into place, and it goes, oh, it's Rush. It's one of those things that, as a listener for a long time, I never really, I had things in my head of what I thought they did in the studio, but the way they worked in the studio, the way they would assemble stuff, all of a sudden, it was just like Lego, and you're going, what are they making? And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, it's Rush. It has that vibe all of a sudden, and it's one of those things where it's very sudden when it would come out,
Right.
So it's really so they were all obsessed, but in their own ways.
I see.
Yeah.
And was there any kind of direction from the band about the remixes of 2112 and Farewell to Kings that you did? As in, we want this or that side of the music to be more apparent this time, or warmer, or...
Okay. Those all of those those are the surround remixes.
Yeah.
The surround remixes were to not reinvent the wheel. So it wasn't like if you were to listen to there was a remix done of Aerosmith of Sweet Emotion, and they put samples on the drums, and they really reefed it up, and it sounded like for then it sounded like modern. It was a modern reinterpretation of the mix, which is not the case here. It was taking the original mixes and trying to be true to them as much as can be done when you're putting stuff into a new three-dimensional spectrum, right? And to maintain that that vibe, which I think for something moving pictures in surround, I think that's one of the, in particular, one of the better, the really strong achievement of that, where it is a strong representation of the original, but there's a few subtle changes. I know I mixed signals in 5.1 for the Sector box set, and Al had mentioned to me, he said, for Subdivision, I always hated that my guitar was so quiet. Can you turn it up a bit? And that was something that we added some meat to his guitar and turned it up a bit. And so for signals, it's different. And in the Atmos, I had recently mixed Limelight and Moving Pictures for Amazon's inaugural release for Atmos. And so those songs came out a little while ago, and they're the same idea, where it's an interpretation of the original mix, but of course with Atmos having the speakers overhead, it's in complete three-dimensional sound. So it's pretty wild sounding.
Amazing. Yeah. And I think Presto in particular and Roll the Bones were two albums that the Rush guys said they would like to redo or re-record altogether if they had a chance.
Wow, really? They didn't tell me about it. That would be
yeah. I think Presto in particular, they wanted to re-record, not just remix, re-record altogether because they weren't happy with how it came out. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Is there a chance that you'll be involved in at least in a remix of those, or?
Well, I still have a great relationship with Al and with Ged, and we're always in. I'm in touch a lot with Al, and we talk, about things. But it's not just the band wanting to release anything. There's record company. There's a lot of there's a lot of steps involved to. From something to go from beyond the idea of us getting together as friends saying, oh, that'd be great, then there's all of the viability and the expense of doing it, and that's something that has to be considered. And for me, it's that's generally not part of my conversation beyond the, well, this is how much time it'll take to do the audio, and this is how it could be done,
Hmm.
and this is what I think it might cost, and then there's all the stuff after that, and that's out of my hands, and it's kind of, you know,
Yeah.
I think that repurposing any of the music that's repurposed for fans and they have a chance to enjoy it in different ways. I think that for people that like Rush or like Dream Theater in one particular way, they like it in this way. I
Yeah.
think that exists for all those fans.
Hmm.
And a lot of new possibilities with technology to take advantage of these new presentations and enjoy music again. It's really no different than, when people, album sales started to drop off, and then all of a sudden somebody, CDs came out, and then there's
Yeah.
this super portable, robust way, and everything was rejuvenated, and people were listening to music more than ever. I think any presentation that gets people to listen to music is a good presentation. And if people
Yeah.
don't like it, you know what? It's okay. You don't have to like it. Just you don't have to, right? If somebody says, "I just like it this way. I like my band this way." That's
Yeah.
good because that already exists for those fans to enjoy over and over again.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one curiosity I have you seen any example of artists going to extremes to fight for their vision of the mix? Like, I'm sure you heard the stories of Ronnie James Dio, he would go to the studio at night to pump up his vocals on the Sabbath albums.
um, for a for mixing, um, I think that there are I have examples for both of the
Mm,
um, I have examples for both sides for you that where I've done a mix for say for Rush. I did a mix for Rush. Like I did a song called Caravan, the single version of Caravan, and I tried to mix it. Nick had asked me to mix it in Nashville, and I was wanted me to mix it on this old Neve console, and I I was working on it. I'm going, this just doesn't sound right for me. And I kept struggling with it. It was like I was in 2.5 days, went in, told the band, told the producer, I said, I can't work on this console for mixing. We tracked on it. It was fine. It's not the console. It's
mm.
me working with the console. So what do you suggest? So I need an SSL. So there was an SSL console at a studio just outside of Nashville. Went there 4 hours later. Band comes in. They listen to it and went, song sounds great. Let's go eat. Do you see
Simple
what I'm
as
saying?
that. Yeah.
Right. But they say, do you have any comments? They went, no, sounds
Uh,
great. We're done. So there's mixes that are that easy. And then, we did for the astonishing, we did so many recalls of mixes where, John would hear certain things and go back and, he had a vision of what the story was. And,
mhm.
I wanted to have the mix, when, you'd have guys, you have some of the characters fighting with swords and, I want to hear this more. I want to hear that more. And we would go back and recall and change. So it changes all the time according to what the artist's vision is.
I see. The
Yeah.
Neve console that you mentioned is the one that you use for Into the Great Divide, right?
Well, it is the same. It is a similar model of console. Into
Okay.
the Great Divide is the legendary console that Dave Grohl has at his place,
Yeah.
and it is a similar model.
Hmm.
But the Into the Great Divide was mixed at my studio in Pro Tools, but we tracked it on Dave Grohl's console. I brought Mike
Okay.
out from Boston. We went out to LA and we tracked the drums over at Dave Grohl's place.
Yeah. I spoke
Yeah.
with Zach Zallen, right? The guy who
Yes.
everything. He was pretty
Yeah.
happy about it. Yeah. He was stoked
Oh,
to have worked with you. Yeah.
he is an amazing musician. It's crazy. He's
Yeah.
this entrepreneur that he cold called me And I just started talking. I started chatting with him, and there was just something about the guy. He was like very, I mean, you spoke with him, right? So he's very
Yeah.
uplifting, right?
Yeah.
Very uplifting and very energized. And I was like, hey man, do you want to have a coffee and get together and talk more? And so, I was out in LA at a trade show, and I got together with him, and we hammered together the whole Into the Great Divide concept. Uh, you know, by the end of the day, we were moving forward. And it's just, he's so talented. He's entrepreneur, but like just, I went back to his place, and he's like, starts to play me some of the stuff he has, and started
Mm.
playing guitar. And I'm just watching him going, you don't play for a living. Like, he's
Yeah.
crazy. It's crazy
He's
how good he
amazing,
is.
right? Yeah.
Crazy. He's
Yeah.
crazy, super talented guy, and really
Yeah.
great, really like a great person. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. Tell me about your work with Aerosmith and Mick Jagger, which I think both albums happened more or less at the same time. God is in the Doorway and Just Push Play, right?
Just one after another. So one after another, we finished just push play, and I was living in LA at the time.
Mm.
I flew back from Boston back to back to LA, and I think it was 2 days later I was working with Mick Jagger. So they were immediately back to back. You know,
That was a good year for you, 2001, right?
that was a really good year. So it ended up. I'm still in touch with Matt Clifford, who's he's a current keyboard player for the Rolling Stones, and
Mm.
we're still in touch to this day. So that really that sparked some great friendships, and I really can't. It's such a privilege to work with artists of that magnitude, and to see that you take with the amount of progressive and metal singers that I work with, that you take somebody like Mick Jagger, who is a
Yeah.
complete polar opposite, and he is what I would define as a stylist, where
Hmm.
he just starts to sing and he's instantly recognizable, and he has this window of performance that he knows how to put himself in, and the
Hmm.
control that he has is so incredible that because it's recallable, instantly recallable.
Yeah.
And when I was told how he likes to uh, record, I was told what microphone he had to use, and the vocal booth, and the type of rug he needed in the vocal booth, and then the
Mm.
size. And the size of the vocal booth was pretty big, like 9 by 12 or 10 by 12 feet to be cornered off, right?
Hmm.
And I'm thinking, God, why does he need so much space? And it's like, because that guy, when he gets behind the mic, he's grooving, and it would be, he'd be totally laid back. And he's like, I think I want to do the first verse again. And he's totally laid back. And, I hit spacebar, and it would, the song would start, and boom, it's just like he's on stage in front of 70,000 people, totally
Wow.
doing his thing, right? And just comes up and just total what you see live. He's in the studio just ripping it, right? And then all of a sudden we get to the end of the verse, he starts, he goes, well, I think that was pretty good, but I like to come in and listen to it. So it was just literally, it was like a switch. Click it on, rock
Okay.
star. Click it off. So
Yeah.
amazing, amazing.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Incredible. Yeah. I do have one request from a friend of mine, which is to share your memories of working with Jeff Healy.
Wow, Jeff. I
Yeah.
know. Rest in peace. What a
Yeah.
guitar player, right?
Hmm.
What a guitar player. So,
Insane. Yeah. Yeah.
so what do you want to know about Jeff Healy?
I mean, what it was like to work with him. I think you did one album or more than one with him, or I keep
We worked
forgetting.
together. We worked together on a one, two, three records, and three studio records, if I remember correctly. Three
Hmm.
studio records, and then um, a bunch of live stuff we did as well, plus some movie
Okay.
submissions, and kind of starting to lose track. It's a long time ago. Rodrigo, what are you doing to me?
Yes.
so
Yeah.
so he was, you know, it was incredible that he was this super uh, super humble guy that would just sit and, when he picked up his instrument and he just put it across his lap, and he would have this reach that is, playing this way, it's just not possible to have the reach, but he would have this reach and play with his thumb and his pinky. So he'd be
Yeah.
doing these riffs that were impossible to play in a standard position.
Hmm.
And he would really play living on the edge when he'd be playing. He'd be trying things, and when he would go and miss a note, he would milk it and he would bend the strings so hard until he would put it into a relevant note for the song. So you would just
Okay.
feel this angst of the guitar, of the stress on the guitar, because he would bend like to clench, right? It's a lot, you
Wow.
get a lot more
Yeah.
strength clenching the strings than pushing them away, right?
Yeah.
So there's all of these things that he would do, and he was a great singer, a
He
great
was
singer.
absolutely. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, another guy that was immediately recognizable, and just immense musical knowledge that he would translate to the instrument. And he was a guy that when I started working with him, the Joe Rockman, the bass player, took me aside and said, uh, Jeff doesn't want you to acknowledge that he's blind.
Wow.
He says he doesn't want you to acknowledge, and
Hmm.
well, I understood and respect that.
Hmm.
At that point I hadn't met him yet. That was like the day before I met him. But when we'd be working together, we worked on a record with Joe Hardy, who's another spectacular producer, and Jeff, we'd be having dinner together, and Jeff would be talking to band. He would just say, "Hey, anybody watch that show last night?" And he'd be going on about the show, and the stuff that he would pick up by listening to it.
Uh-huh.
It's as if he watched the show. Really was
Wow.
quite incredible. And he would pace. He knew his way around the band, the house and the studio. That he knew was 11 steps from the wraparound staircase to the studio door, and he would book it. He's like right there. And the rules are don't leave doors half open because he has his hand out just in case. But
Okay.
he's motoring, right? So
Wow.
he would know his way around. Would have you just have to have his stuff set up the way he wanted it,
Hmm.
and he was an amazing musician, and it just
Wow.
every single time I would watch him, it
Yeah.
would just be like it's mind blowing as a guitar player.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, by the way.
Uh,
Yeah. And what other projects are you currently working on, or are you looking forward to in the near future?
well, I'm doing some catalog work right now, and I can't really mention catalog work I can't precede a band's
Yeah.
press release. So I you know
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm doing some catalog work. I'm always looking for young bands like in Pyramid Theorem. When they showed up, I was so blown away by their musicianship and how they wanted to live on the edge musically
Mm.
and to not be concerned about trends. And I really respected that about the band. And when we when we talked about working together, when we were saying, let's do an 18-minute song, it's like, yeah, yeah, we're
Yeah.
going to do that. And they were saying, well, let's put it first. And it's like, all right, let's do that. And, for to throw an 18-minute song to a record company right now,
Yeah.
they're pretty scared.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But the musicianship is really undeniable. So,
Yeah.
um, I'm
I'll tell you
always
how I
looking
met
for
them.
people that want to express themselves. How did you meet them?
I met them, I was my first concert here in Toronto after moving from Rio. I was checking out Fate's Warning, and they were the
Uh-huh.
opening band. And as soon as they joined us, they entered the stage. The bass player had his Rickenbacker and a Canadian shirt, and I was like blown away. He sings so well, and the songs are great. But this one that you just produced and mixed, I think it's a step above from his previous two records.
Okay, so short story about that. So we got together. So
Mm,
we got together, and they had sent me songs from their last record. And when I listened to their last record, I told the band, I said, "You sound like two different bands."
Van
there's
Halen and
this.
Rush, right?
Well, yeah, they
Yeah,
sound like Van Halen. It's actually a really good combo. It's like the Van
yeah,
Halen, with the chick videos and and then there was this Rush and some stuff that was a little bit darker. And
yeah.
I said, well, which band do you want to be? Right. And then I went, because if you want to be the sort of the 80s Van Halen band, I don't think I'm the right guy for you to do this. That's not, I'm not
Hmm.
going to be able to do my best work for you. And so it took, I don't know how many months, maybe 6 months of us going back and forth. And they started to write material. And the material was really complex and really, they just sort of took all of the pop sensibility and they went, you know what, we're going to focus on being a great progressive band. And you know, when we can connect with our fans, that's how you get something that's how you get something that's going to be a single,
Hmm.
because if fans resonate with a particular song, that's going to be what makes it a single, not that it's written to be a single,
Yeah.
right? Those two, right? The end result, it can be kind of the same, but the means to get there is very, very different, because one of them you don't give a crap whether, a record company says, well, we need a 3-minute song. It's like, well, here's an 18-minute one. How's that?
Yeah.
Right? But if enough people like a song that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 minutes long, it's going to get played. Here's a band that they don't have a record deal yet, and there's a radio station in Toronto that just featured them. I think it was last week.
Hmm.
And they took like 18 minutes of prime radio time. They
Wow,
played.
that's cool.
They played.
Yeah,
That's pretty amazing.
yeah,
There's a lot of artists that are struggling to get on radio,
yeah.
so people can recognize the talent. And I think that that's one of the things that I respect about the band, that it's just like they love to live dangerously, and they're great players, and they're flexible, and they do stuff, they try things in order to improve themselves.
Hmm.
And I think that that's really critical in order to grow.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think they will definitely be bigger. I sense that there's a growth inside the band, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Just before we wrap it up, how do people get in touch with you if they want to work with you as a producer or engineer?
Uh-huh. Well, if you go to my website at www.richardchickie.ca,
Hmm.
there's contact info there, and that there's also stuff that goes over to my Facebook, and
Yeah,
I'm pretty easy to reach, and yeah, that's how to get hold of me. Plus, with
awesome.
guys like you promoting, thank you.
Yes, no problem. Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to hearing the next albums you're involved with, whether on the mixing desk or as a producer. All right.
Appreciate it, Rodrigo. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Amazing work, man. You do great interviews.
Thank you. Thank you. I spoke with John not too long ago, with his solo album. So
Yeah.
yeah,
How is it? I haven't heard it yet. Is it good?
it's great. It's Andy Sneap on the mixing desk.
Yeah, Andy's great.
Yeah, yeah,
Andy's great. It's I hope that I know that I think they're working on a new record right now. So
yeah,
I think they're going to do some hopefully do some great stuff again. I mean, they're
yeah.
such an incredible band.
Are you gonna
And
be involved with it as well,
no,
or
no, I'm not
not?
involved with this record.
Uh-huh.
No, I'm not involved with this record. But they're in good hands. I think Jim Meslin is tracking it. I don't know who's mixing it.
Hmm.
But with COVID,
Yeah,
I don't think Labrie heading down at all. I don't think Labrie is heading down to
yeah.
work on it. And I think that the band is it's great that they've been together for so long, and they're still uh, changing and adapting according to how the band's feeling creatively. 'Cause I
Yeah.
think that's they're still growing after what is 30 years?
30
Or
something. Yeah, 30 something.
excuse
Yeah,
me, 30
yeah,
something years, and they're still
yeah,
growing and changing. That's amazing.
yeah.
That's
No, but
amazing.
thank you for the perspectives on Rush and Dream Theater and everything. I'm a huge fan, so
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, hopefully we'll stay in touch.
We will. I will send you the link once this is published, and if you can share it on your social media, that would be great.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Would look forward to
Awesome.
it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, man. Have a good night.
Cheers, Rodrigo. Bye bye.
Cheers. Bye. Bye. Okay, everyone, thank you for tuning in. Just a reminder that you can check out this interview on many formats: YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. Also, please follow us on Twitter and Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let's wrap it up with the song Under Control from Pyramid Theorem's new album Beyond the Exosphere. Stay safe and see you next time.